Welcome everyone for our first town hall meeting. I'll be brief. We've got handouts for you on your seat. If you were fortunate enough to get here early enough, there's a packet that we provide to new homeowners, and we also included some materials inside of that would be helpful for you tonight. One of the important pieces is the feedback and comment cards. We very much want to hear from you. If you have opinions on how we can improve our communication with you, this is just one way the council wanted to do that, was to hold a town hall meeting where people can come and ask questions, raise questions. We may not be able to answer all of your questions today, but we want to be able to provide you answers. So one quick way to do that is to have a comment card with your contact. We'd love to, your phone numbers are great. We'd love to have your emails because then we can always keep you in contact with what's going on in the city. We have multiple ways of communication. Many of you get the bi-monthly newsletter that comes out. We also have electronic versions of that as well, and that's the one that we can always keep you updated with quick information. We have a separate newsletter, an e-newsletter that goes out to businesses. So if you're also, or you are a business owner in town, we'd love to have that contact because there's specific information that businesses like to know about, and we'd like to communicate with you as well on that. We have 3 briefings that we want to provide to you. One on the city's finances, the other being the civic campus that we're having a groundbreaking on today, and then the third one is the comprehensive plan. And we just want to provide you a very quick update on that. Please let the 3 speakers talk, and then they'll take time for questions and answers on them. Again, thank you for coming, and our first briefing is going to be presented by Shelley Peterson, our finance director.
For every dollar you pay towards property taxes, a little less than 30% goes to the city. The rest goes to your school district, your county, the HRA, and then some other taxing districts like mosquito control or Met Council. With that 28% about, it goes to the city's governmental funds along with some other revenue sources, but your taxes make up 66% of the revenue we use to support operations, public safety, capital within the city, replacement of capital infrastructure. There's 6% that we anticipate we will get in permits and revenues every year. We receive about 10% in intergovernmental. Most of that is local government aid, which the state gives cities based on a formula that they determine our needs. We have 12%, which is charges for services. This would be police security services, engineering fees, plan reviews, and then there's 3% in transfers, which is the support we provide to some of the other funds that we service the community with, and then 3% is miscellaneous. So it's about $70 million in revenue that comes into our governmental funds. So what do we do with that money? Half of that money goes towards public safety. So if you look at the graph that shows how is the money spent, it shows 39% of that money goes towards police services, 9% goes to fire protection, and 21% is public works. That would be park maintenance, your street maintenance. And then you've got 6% for park and recreation, 8% is community and economic development, and then about a third of the pie goes towards just administrative operations, the finance department, the city manager, communications. One thing that I wanted to note is oftentimes there's this misconception that your quarterly utility bills go to fund these operations. We have 3 utility funds. It's water, storm, and sewer, and those services are kept separate. So the money that we raise in those funds is used to improve the infrastructure, repair the infrastructure, and provide for the operations. For example, in the sewer fund, nearly all of the operations is the fees we pay to Met Council to process wastewater. So just to be clear, those are self-funded. The fees go towards that infrastructure and operations. And this year's, we're doing an in-depth fee study in these funds. And what our hope is with this fee study is we'll determine whether our customer classes, and that could be a commercial, industrial, residential, whether we have a fair system for billing customers, and then help with equalizing those rate increases year to year. And it's to help put us in a position so that we can effectively, safely, and efficiently provide those utility services. One thing residents don't often know is the city owns 2 liquor stores. We have 2 municipal liquor stores in the city. One is located over near Cub Foods. The other is on Highway 65 near Moore Lake. Those stores provide about $340,000 to the general fund to help support, or to not just the general fund, to the governmental funds to support significant things. And one thing we've done is tried to direct those funds towards specific park projects, replacement of a playground, purchasing of a fire truck in our fire departments. So that helps offset tax increases when we have those other operations helping provide for those one-time purchases. I wanted to just briefly touch on what our financial forecast looks like for 2018, and it's really early in the process to determine that. But on the other side of the piece of paper, we talked about how public safety makes up half of our governmental funds. Well, of the general fund, which is where police and fire fall, 77% of those expenditures go towards salaries and benefits that we provide. So even just a slight change to our salary budget, because it's 77%, amounts to a significant dollar amount. So some of the challenges we're looking at for 2018 would be our union agreements with police and fire. Oftentimes, those are 2 to 3 year agreements. They come with, it could be a 2% market rate adjustment or a 3% cost of living adjustment or 1, but that is an unknown for us right now. And that could be up to a $500,000 increase to our salaries depending on what those negotiations result in. Another thing is everyone knows our health insurance costs rise. They're rising for everyone. In our governmental or our general fund, when we are told by our insurance providers to anticipate a 10% increase, that's $100,000. So we've been told to anticipate health insurance going up by $100,000 for next year. We also have been told by the state to anticipate a mandate on what we're contributing for police and fire pensions. It's going to be a 2-year mandate. It should amount to about $30,000 to $50,000 more than we would normally contribute towards those pension funds. And all in the general fund, just based on those things that we're anticipating in our personnel costs, and a 2% increase to some of our operations, which is a low estimate, we're thinking we're at about $900,000 in need for our general fund. So in addition to our general fund and what we're anticipating our increases to be, we have a 5-year capital improvement plan. And with that 5-year capital improvement plan, we have projected that for 2018, we have about $464,000 in projects that we haven't identified a funding source for. So we'll either have to look at deferments or identifying a funding source for those. So that's over $1 million. Another challenge that the city of Fridley has, and it shouldn't be seen as a challenge, it's supposed to be seen as a good thing, but there's this program called fiscal disparities. Fiscal disparities has been around since the early 1970s. What it was, Raquel put on here, it's World Peace for Metro Development. And what that means is it's a tool to provide equality amongst our neighbors, so there's not a lot of competition for stealing commercial development from your neighboring communities. So what happens is, Fridley has a very strong industrial commercial base. We put a portion of those values into a pool, and it's distributed amongst all the metro area cities. And Fridley happens to be the only city in Anoka County that contributes more than we receive back. An example would be, if we didn't have fiscal disparities, the median valued home in Fridley would see their taxes go down about $16. So you're paying a little bit more for the fact that we're contributing more in value than we're getting back. Another example would be Columbia Heights. So if you took your home, if you had a median valued home in Fridley at about $170,000, and we just moved that home to Columbia Heights using our tax rates and our formulas, you'd probably pay about $150 less. So there are cities that receive much more in fiscal disparities contributions than Fridley. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it shows we have a strong commercial and industrial base, but it just shows you that's a challenge for Fridley when we're trying to keep taxes from constantly rising. The other unique thing that the city of Fridley has, which I don't have listed here, is we are a charter city. There are two types of cities. There's a statutory city and there's a charter city. Statutory cities follow state law. Charter cities can be a little bit more unique. We have like our own constitution where we can create even more specialized laws. Well, one of the rules in our charter is we have a limitation on what we can raise our general operation levy by. And that has been, for the past 8 years, we've averaged about a 1.4% increase each year. Some years it's 0, some years it may be a little more than that. But over the past 8 years, we've only been able to increase our general operations by about 1.4%. So how do we compare to our neighbors when you look at our taxes? So considering these challenges, if you look at how we compare and you look at all our neighbors, we're right in the middle as far as tax rates. So there's a graph there that kind of points to Fridley being in the middle, but you'll want to look at the numbers there. And if you look at our neighboring communities, the council still does an incredible job of maintaining the line and making sure that taxes within Fridley are fair and reasonable.
16 years ago, when the restriction was first enacted by citizen initiative, and it was put to the ballot on a balloted question. So that restriction says that that the city council has the ability to raise your property taxes or any broad-based fee or tax to the extent of the rate of inflation based on the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, or 5%, whichever is less. Well, over that 16 years, I don't know that the inflationary rate has been at the cap of 5%. Unlike in the 1980s when there was double digit. You want me to move away, Brian? Oh, you're telling the other guys, get out of the way, huh? Okay. Anyways, you know, as Shelley pointed out, over the last 8 years, whatever, our ability has been to be able to raise your property taxes or broad-based fees by about 1.4%. It's not keeping up, is the bottom line. So what has been going on for the last several months with the Charter Commission, who has oversight over our charter, to see if, to give them information, ask them to review the charter restriction. Is it doing its job? Has it been successful? Has it been harmful? Basically, it's just a bunch of questions asking them, would you look at it open-mindedly and then look at, should we remove it? Should it be reduced? Should it be left the way it is? And the commission has moved along to a point where they have taken consideration of reducing the restriction. They do not want to remove it entirely, but they have lessened that restriction currently now. That is not law. It will move on to the council. There will be a public hearing and all that before the final thing can be drafted or put into ordinance or law here in Fridley.
Financing cities is very, very complicated stuff. And that, based on just some of the questions that you hear, you know, did the bond for the city hall, when is that going to take place? It already has. The mayor said it's going to be about, on an average home, $120, and you might be saying, well, my taxes didn't go up $120. That's because the city of Fridley is just one of many property tax entities charging you property taxes. There's the county, the school district, metropolitan council, the watershed districts. All those different entities have properties going, their taxes going up or down depending on if bonds are being paid off, those kinds of things. So it gets very, very complicated, and it's not easy just to say, well, it's going to be $120, and then you look at your property tax statement and says, well, you know, mine went up $300. How could that be? So it's not as easy, and that's why we want to have these kinds of meetings to explain the best we can so you can understand it and make some type of valuative judgment based on, you know, saying, are you getting your value out of your property taxes? Okay, now, the question was, do we get a lot of value property taxes from the Medtronic buildings? And now you're going to ask for a real complicated answer on that. I wish it could be simple, but because the world headquarters is in a tax increment financing district, the answer is not that much. That a tax increment financing district is a tool for cities to use to attract development, help pay for the infrastructure, the property cleanup, or whatever it needed to be done when it was the drive-in, I guess, and sewer lines and water lines and roadways needed to be put in there. Those all have costs, and tax increment is a tool to do that. And for a period of time, 25 years, is that right, Scott? 25 years, that increment or the higher value that you have now and the increase in property taxes that they are paying pays for those infrastructure improvements to get done. Because you wouldn't get that world headquarters there if the roadways and the sewer lines and all those other things weren't done. Now there's another Medtronic building in town, right, on Old Central, which is not in a tax increment financing district, and I can't tell you how much they pay in taxes, but in general, commercial property pays about 60% of all the property taxes in the city of Fridley.
Wally was correct in the fact that they have tax increment financing. It is a 25-year increment. So the first 10 years of Medtronic's building existence, it was basically the tax there was at the same level as before the building added value. Now, they're well beyond that first 10 years. They're in about the 16th, 17th year of that existence. So each year from the 10th to the 25th, it's incrementally increasing. And at the 25th year, that will be their final reduction in tax increment financing. And then they go to full taxation from then on.
Okay, as the mayor said, in the interest of time, I'd like to introduce Scott Hickok, our Community Development Director, to share with you a couple of minutes on the Civic Campus in Lock Park Point.
This is really nice to see so many friendly faces and familiar faces, many of you who were here when we were discussing the potential redevelopment of the Columbia Arena site back in 2014, and we talked about what might that site become. At the time, you might remember, the HRA had purchased the site, weren't quite sure exactly what it would be, but it was an important, very important redevelopment site for the city of Fridley, and we wanted to make sure that the right thing happened. So when the opportunity arose, the HRA was very good at stepping up and making the purchase. And simultaneous to that, City Manager Weisopel had consulted with an architect on this building. The two things weren't related. Mr. Weisopel's quest was to find out what the future of this building might be and what we would need to do in order to live here another 50 years. And some of you might be surprised because this room particularly is so nice and still looks relatively nice and relatively new. But as the architects got into the building, they found what was no surprise to us, and that is there were just an enormous number of inefficiencies and inadequacies relative to code requirements in modern times. Things like accessible elevators that didn't exist here, accessible bathrooms that didn't exist, locker rooms and other things that just needed to be updated in order to meet modern code standards. And as a opportunity then, as we saw that the costs to renovate this building may nearly match the costs to build new, we pondered that. Like I say, though, simultaneous to that, we had a lot of citizen input. We had over 800 hours of citizen input on what the redevelopment of the Columbia Arena site might be and how it should look, and got a great bit of feedback. Without prompting from council members or commission members or staff, we had citizens saying, isn't it about time? Shouldn't we be building something new for our police and our fire, our city hall? And the arena, as you know, is next to the Public Works facility. And it was very important that we look at that redevelopment of that Columbia Arena site as a cohesive development. We heard through the public engagement process, you'll recall we had 4 meetings and we had developers come in who told us that if you want something nice on the arena site, you're going to need to make sure that you do something with your existing public works site. That's not to say that, we're a disaster over there, or we're just a catastrophe, but new development wants to have a great neighborhood to be in. It wants to have the surroundings feel as good as the new development itself. And it was an opportunity to take a look at the entire area and to provide then maybe a new look at how that entire campus might be situated. It will be a one-stop shop. It will be a place that you can have convenient services. You can walk into the front desk and you will know by the design of this complex where the front desk is. You won't be confused anymore about, let me see, is it at that end of the building that I can see from University Avenue, or is that part that's by the parking deck off from 5th? And you'll be able to park. You'll be able to have the convenience and ease of getting to the front desk. And once you get to the front desk, I think you're going to be very pleased at a building and complex that was designed not to be ostentatious, not to be garish or overly grand, but it is grand. I think you're going to be very proud. You're going to be very, very excited the first time you step into the lobby of that City Hall, because it could be very different than the lobby at this City Hall. It will be two-story, it will be glass, there will be lots of sunshine, and to match Manager Weisopel's goals and objectives, every staff member is going to be on the same level in the front complex. It is a complex that has two buildings, one that is the combination City Hall, Police and Fire. The second building is the Public Works facility. And you've been watching, I'm sure, and you know that development doesn't end there. There was a very, very nice and elaborate pond that needed to be developed to manage the stormwater on this site. But folks were thinking, since we're going to have that stormwater management anyway, why don't we make it an amenity? And why don't we get some of the grand that citizens told us that they wanted to have in this development and make that a feature? So you're going to find that there's a half-mile walking trail around a very nice stormwater feature, and that stormwater feature not only will manage the City Hall, Police, Fire, and Public Works water, it will also manage the water for future development. The HRA right now is working very closely with a developer to do private development on the south side of this water feature and essentially create a little village, a little downtown, a little central place feel. The timeline, and I know that we get a lot of questions on that. I think the mayor and council members get a lot of questions on that. Probably Steve and other people on the HRA get questions on that. What's the timeline? So hopefully this helps you a little bit. I can tell you today, you can take advantage of the opportunity to go and be at the groundbreaking. We'd love to have you there. It is going to happen at 1 o'clock. You're all welcome. We're going through some land use items. Preliminary and final plat will be on the council's agenda for Monday night. We'll have an agreement very, very shortly with the private developer that wants to develop the residential portion on the south side of the pond. When are you going to start seeing a building come up out of the ground? In October, you're going to see a skeleton, a steel frame coming up out of the ground. Curtain wall glass will be going on in February of 2018. The exterior framing will be also done in 2018. It will really start to look like a building at that time. Public Works and their staff are going to move into their new building in May of 2018. And they need to move into their new building because their old building will then be demolished. That site will be cleared, and that site will be ready then for the private development that will happen on the east, the Lock Park side of the Public Works facility. That demolition will happen. We'll get to final grades in June of 2018. You'll be seeing a building that looks like we're ready to occupy, but a lot of stuff happens once the exterior skin goes on buildings, interior finishes, finishing the electrical, the plumbing, all of those things. But you'll be able to enter. All goes well, and we know it will. You'll be able to enter City Hall in November of 2018 and or the Public Works entry area, and you'll be able to see what the building looks like. We know that when we get it to that point, we're going to open the doors again. You've showed a lot of interest through the process. We want you to continue to be interested. We love that enthusiasm, and we'll give you a tour of that facility. And again, that's your home. You helped every bit of the way to bring that forward. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable there, that you use it, that gathering space is a place that you take part in and enjoy. We have analyzed 73rd Avenue also, and we have looked at and actually designed a future access that would allow us an opportunity to connect this development to 73rd along the western edge of the Target property. So we are in talks with Target with the potential of bringing a frontage road that would connect the Lock Park roadway to 73rd Avenue and provide another out for folks that to this point either drive up the frontage road to get to 73rd or have to go out to University to do so. The state of Minnesota controls University Avenue, MnDOT, and MnDOT restricts any and all access. In fact, early on we thought that it would be very nice to have at least a right-in, right-out from University Avenue onto 71st. MnDOT said absolutely not. We went back several times and asked them that same question in different ways, and they said absolutely not. We looked at the potential for having fire and police access southbound across the median out onto University Avenue. We still continue those talks with MnDOT and haven't given up 100% hope, although it's sounding a lot like absolutely not from MnDOT, even in that regard.
The last briefing that we have is on the comprehensive plan, and there's going to be a short presentation, right? And then interaction. There's some maps up, so we might have to do a little rearranging or getting up and moving around. So Julie Jones, our city planner, will share with you comprehensive plan and then get some of your feedback. We'll get back together and wrap things up by noon.
Scott's discussion about the Columbia Arena is fitting to kind of segue into talking about the comprehensive plan, because when we created the 2030 comprehensive plan, looking at this building and the feasibility of keeping it functioning was one of the things that we were set to task to look at in the action steps here. And so looking at the comprehensive plan, this is a long-range plan for the city. We do this every 10 years. It's something we're required to do by law, but it's something good for the city to do because we use this document, which takes us 2 to 3 years to put together every 10 years, then to budget in the city for the next 10 years. And so we're embarking on that again, and how we're going about it is we are in the phase right now of gathering data. For the comprehensive plan, there's an insert in your packet labeled 2040 comprehensive plan, because that's what we're doing now. We're planning out for the next 30 years. And so we are looking at data and projections out to the next 30 years in regards to our population, our households, and employment in the city. And you'll see a chart at the bottom of the first page, on the front page of that handout that gives those numbers. And those projections are made by Metropolitan Council with some feedback from us based on the 2010 census data. Some things that are not in your packet that may be of interest that I was just looking at yesterday is looking at Fridley's population over time. If I were to have created a line graph for you of Fridley's population from 1880 to 1980, it was kind of going on this steady incline upwards and peaked at 1980 of about 30,000 people. And then it started going down a little bit and kind of leveling off almost. Well, now, since 2006, our population has been going back up. And if you see in the projections, 10 years from now, our population is going to probably surpass what it was in 1980, the highest level in our history. So that's kind of an interesting thing to note. Interesting, though, the population size of 2.4 people has stayed the same since a decade ago when we were looking at numbers. There's some interesting household changes that are happening too, maybe not too surprising with divorce rates that we hear about, but husband-wife family households from 2000, when the data in this comprehensive plan, our last one was based upon in our 2010 census data, shows that husband-wife type family households has decreased from 48.6% to 43.4%. Female-headed households have, interestingly, increased, I should say not surprisingly, from 11.6% to 14.1%. Householders living alone has increased 2% up to 28.8% in the last 10 years. And I know 10 years ago we were saying how Fridley is aging. We are the most aged community in all of Anoka County. But it's interesting in the data that I'm looking at just yesterday from 2010 census data compared to the mid-census data that we get from the American Community Survey, that the median age in Fridley has dropped 2 years in just the past 5 years, from 37 to 35. So we've got a lot of young families with young children moving into the community, is what I'm thinking is causing those numbers to change. Our projections 10 years ago were for the aged community to really increase, but actually it has dropped a little bit in the past 5 years, down to just under 14% now of age 65 and over in Fridley. So we're seeing different demographic changes than what we projected just 10 years ago. And of course, the race distribution in the community has changed dramatically. From when I started working here in the 1990s, it has changed from in the 90% range to now 67% of our population being white. In other words, almost a third of our population now being of minority population. Another good position that we're in updating our comprehensive plan right now is because we have done a lot of special studies in the past 10 years. Some of you may have been involved in our East River Road Corridor Study project that we did jointly with Anoka County and the city of Coon Rapids. And that's a big document that we have in place too, and that will be incorporated in our comprehensive plan. We also created an alternative transportation plan with the use of SHIP money here in 2013. The City Council approved that, and the components of that alternative transportation plan will be incorporated in our comprehensive plan. We also created a master plan for our North Star Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District that will be incorporated. And we've completed a few years ago a Safe Routes to Schools plan with the Columbia Heights School District, and we're just in the process now of wrapping up a Safe Routes to Schools plan with the Fridley School District. So all those things get incorporated in here. But what's most important for us to incorporate is input from all of you. And that's where the exercise comes in today. And we will have multiple events coming up here in the coming months. We're trying to catch people at other events like this one that you're at to get a little input from specific things. We're going to have surveys on the city website that we're probably going to ask you to do from the comfort of your home or from your cell phone somewhere. So don't be surprised if you see me at other events in the coming months asking for your input on various things. But today I have 3 maps in the back of the room. And I'm going to ask, I know this is going to be difficult with this many people. Understandably, we're not expecting this big of a crowd. Otherwise, I would have had multiple maps up on the wall for you here. But back in the room in this corner, just like when Columbia Arena was a potential redevelopment site 10 years ago, the city staff has spent a great deal of time sitting down and going through maps collectively of various departments involved in the community and picked out I think there's about 30 potential redevelopment sites marked on that map. We're going to give you 3 red dots, and we want you to look at those areas, think in your mind of your neighborhood, and think of a site, or 3 sites rather, that in the community you feel maybe need to be redeveloped, and put a dot at each one of those on the map. I know one that came up a lot last year that I just got a call about the other day was Moon Plaza out here on the corner, saying, boy, you know, their parking lot looks really bad, they need to do something. That'd be something that you put a dot on the map for. And then back in the room in this way, we've got 2 other maps. One of them is labeled transportation safety concerns. And that doesn't necessarily have to be driving. We're thinking of biking and walking and pushing the baby in the stroller type thing if you're trying to get around the city. Where are there traffic or transportation safety concerns that you have? We've got, instead of dots, we've got Post-it notes. So if you can be as descriptive as possible for me in that little Post-it note, because we've got a lot of people here. It'd be helpful even if you describe the area, because some of them might be on top of each other. It might be difficult for me to figure out what intersection you're talking about. And then on this map over here, this comes up, it seems, every time we update our comprehensive plan, that people say, you know, we're a river community, we've got the river running along our western border, but I can't see the river, I can't access the river. So having some discussion with people at the National Park Service, because of course the area of the river running through Fridley is a national park, and they suggested asking a question of, what are the barriers to you to enjoying the river? Is it a park you're not comfortable going in? Is it a trail that's missing from your neighborhood? what is it that's causing you to feel like you just really can't access the river? We do have a very good bus service in this community, and of course, we're very blessed to have a commuter train station, the North Star train station. So we want to make sure that people have access to those things because that's a key component to our transportation system.
Well, again, it is a great day, maybe not the weather, but what a historic day in this groundbreaking ceremony. Did we ever think that we were ever going to really get to this point? I'm sure we had doubts at times, but today is the reality, and won't it be exciting to watch this thing as it grows and matures, and we get to, hopefully in a few short months, 18 approximately, that we will be moving into a new facility. And what I'm really proud of and happy with is that there seems to be a lot of positive consensus from our community. They're willing to support this and pay for it out of their property tax increase. So that is always an impressive feat, to have people that are willing to do this. It was a scary moment or two there when there may have been a reverse referendum that would have squashed this project, but fortunately enough people were in favor of this, and I think that's a great testament to our community, and I am proud of that, to be a part of that community. I'm sure as the staff is too here in the room. So we get the hard work. Today is the easy part, and from there on, you guys have your work cut out for you. Hopefully it'll be drier weather for you. So, but I think it's a great day. Thank you.
Scott Hickok has a few words. Scott?
If I could have the folks from McGough, all of the McGough folks step up. We're in the McGough trailer right now. We're going to introduce you to our folks that will be doing the construction. I'd like to introduce you to the folks that did the design. We have had just a phenomenal team working on this project. You know, the city came into this with very, very high expectations, and we picked an architect that was really second to none. And we have not been disappointed through this process. It has been a beautiful design process. It's one that the staff has responded very positively to. It's one that the citizens have responded very, very positively to. And I want to thank them for their great work.
This is very exciting. I mean, a lot of you all know this is not just a civic campus. This is actually an entire community identity with the pond feature and the housing feature. This is creating a kind of the heart of the city of Fridley. And to us, that's phenomenally exciting. And so from I've got Dave here. Oh, God, Dave. Sorry, a few of our people couldn't make it, but it's been very exciting. The other thing I want to say too is it's very easy to do a good job when you have a good client. And I don't say this often because I've had a lot of tough clients, but you all have been, you know, even when we had issues that were challenging, it was always done in a positive way.
You all came out on a very wet, a very soggy day. We're going to get some great photos in spite of the fact that it's raining. And hard hats are here, shovels are here, thanks to McGough. Again, without much further ado, I just want to say, everybody, thank you for being here. Eat some treats here, and then get out and try and stay dry.
This has been a production of Fridley Municipal Television, Channel 17.